Hello there. Welcome to my weekly meditation. I am Reverend Devon, and if you are looking to nurture a progressive faith and are open to a second opinion, please know that no matter who you are or where you are in your life journey, you are welcome in this place. And so please also feel free to like and subscribe and share these messages with anybody you feel called to. Our reading for today comes from Mark chapter 13, verses 24 through 37. But in those days, after that suffering, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will be falling from heaven, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds, with great power and glory. Then he will send out the angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven. From the fig tree learn its lesson. As soon as its branches become tender and puts forth its leaves, you know that summer is near. So also when you see these things taking place, you know that he is near, at the very gates. Truly I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all these things have taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. But about that day or hour no one knows, neither the angels in heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. Beware, keep alert, for you do not know when the time will come. It is like a man going on a journey, when he leaves home and puts his slaves in charge, each with his work, and commands the doorkeeper to be on watch. Therefore keep awake, for you do not know when the master of the house will come, in the evening or at midnight, or at first light or at dawn. Or else he may find you asleep when he comes suddenly. And what I say to you I say to all, keep awake. Hello, sisters and brothers. We are going into the first Sunday of Advent, and our reading from Mark chapter 13 today is about waiting for Jesus, which is traditionally what Advent is all about. It's about us reflecting upon Jesus Christ and the gifts that he has given us as we live our lives in this world. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about this passage, about how it talks about waiting and how I think Christian understandings of what it means to wait for Jesus have changed over the years, and also why that change really has been needed. So during the season of Advent, we are preparing ourselves for Christmas, the day of Jesus's not necessarily historic birth, but the day where we celebrate Jesus's birth. And we celebrate also the things that Jesus brought into the world, or at least made us more aware of within the world. Jesus' gifts of hope, peace, joy, and love. Advent, in a lot of ways, is organized around this idea that we are waiting for Christmas. We're waiting for that birth, that revelation to happen. And in some ways, I think that we definitely are, as a tradition, waiting for something good to happen within the world. And that's summed up to a degree in this reading from Mark, where Jesus talks about a master who goes on a journey and his servant who is waiting for him. And at the end of the passage, Jesus tells his followers, keep awake. You never know when that time will arrive. But at the same time, Jesus says that it will happen within his followers' lifetimes. And so this passage is interpreted as a prophecy, a foretelling. It's meant to warn us of this idea of a second coming, which pretty much every early Christian believed was going to happen sometime within their lives. We, however, live 2,000 years after the birth of Christ, and I think a lot of Christians have come to the conclusion that this second coming thing This thing that Jesus talks about in this passage in Mark chapter 13 with the angels and the earth ending and God's judgment coming down upon us and all the evil in the world getting cast out. It's probably not going to happen like that. So, what does that mean for us 2,000 years later? How are we supposed to interpret a passage like this? How does it relate to us if we can look back at history and be like, well, that didn't happen, so how is this true? For me, I think the truth in this passage rests in this parable that Jesus tells about the servant waiting for his master. Jesus tells us that we need to keep awake, that we need to be ready. And I think that the way in which we choose to perceive this servant who is waiting really has a role to play in how we are going to behave as Christians within the world. Do we see this servant as being a passive participant in what's happening with their master, or do we see them as an active participant who is actively waiting, actively keeping their eyes open, and actively being prepared to do what God needs within the world? I think that there are many Christians within the world who adopt a passive religion. They are waiting for Jesus to come and to do all the hard work of fixing this world for us, but I think that for many of us who have a more engaged faith with the world that we're living in, we choose to see a figure like this servant who is waiting, as a person who is actively engaged in what they are doing. During Advent, we are waiting for Christmas, but we're also celebrating the gifts that Jesus gives us to make use of within this world. Hope, peace, joy, and love are not things that we just need to light a candle during, these 4 weeks that lead up to Christmas and be like, oh, that's nice and pretty. Let's sing a few songs, put them out, and then go about our days. I don't think that that's what the entire ritual of Advent is about. The ritual of Advent is to remind us that if we don't put hope, peace, joy, and love to work within the world, if we are not awake and alert and ready to apply these gifts that Jesus gives us, how then can we expect a positive transformation to happen within this earth or these lives that we live? Jesus tells us that hope, peace, joy, and love will help God transform this world, this earth that we live in, to be a little bit more like heaven. But we need to keep ourselves within that picture, I feel. We need to recognize that Jesus didn't just throw hope, peace, joy, and love into the world and be like, oh, that's it, fixed everything. Jesus gave those gifts to us. Why did he do that? Why do we have these gifts of love that Christ gave us if Christ did not intend for us to use them? So, are we keeping awake? Are we making use of the gifts that Christ gives us? I feel that Vermont has become more aware of the conflict that's happening between Hamas and Israel because this last Saturday, 3 young Palestinian men were shot walking outside of their home. And I feel that here in Burlington, where this crime took place, a lot of people are startled, they're shocked, they're angry that something like this could have happened in our kind, neighborly community. While I definitely understand that here in Vermont, we like to see ourselves as being kind and neighborly, I do wonder whether or not that sentiment is rooted in fact, whether or not we have been awake to the growing hate, anger, and resentment that exists within our communities. Because it seems that every time something like this happens in our communities, we are totally blown back, caught off guard, and unprepared to give support to the victims, to stand in solidarity with those who are in need of love, and to bring hope, peace, and joy into dark, difficult, and ugly situations. The message of Christ does not ignore the struggle that we as human beings go through within this world, the horrible and ugly things that we are capable of if we are not actively trying to be good, kind people within the world. Being kind takes work, and I think that too many of us have become passive when it comes to trying to bring kindness into the world. And so this, for me, is where this passage from Mark draws relevance, where there is truth for us to learn from it, because if we are not willing to stay awake, to keep the gifts of Christ active and in use within our lives, then we're going to drop the ball. We're going to be unprepared for when God really needs us to bring love into the world so that we can support our neighbors, support those who are in need, and change things for the better. I feel that this is the message of Advent. This is what we need to be prepared for. And honestly, it's a great message for us to hold on to in dark times like these. So, peace to you all, and I pray that as we enter into these holidays, you will find a bit of Christ's joy, light, and love. Amen.